Made in New Orleans is underwritten by Art Plus Design Magazine, New Orleans Auction Galleries, and New Orleans Living Magazine.
Hi folks, welcome to Made in New Orleans. Today we have artist Billy Solitario, and later we'll visit with jewelry artist Gogo Borgerding. But first, let's take a look at Billy's work in his studio and gallery on Magazine Street.
I'm primarily an oil painter, working on canvas in a realistic fashion. I am a product of the 90s and the 80s, where there were very few people teaching realistic painting as a skill. Came to New Orleans in 1996, and I went to the New Orleans Academy of Fine Arts. And what I found there was something that I was really looking for. I wanted to know how to paint. I wanted to know how to draw and how to paint, not how to come up with an idea that I can conceptualize and I can verbally talk about. I wanted all my information to be on the canvas. I wanted people to look at that canvas and be done with the story. I wanted them to see it, be done with it, so that I wouldn't have to talk as much about it. So when I learned the skills of painting, and it's a very long process to learn painting as a craft. When I was a student at the New Orleans Academy of Fine Arts, I didn't care what I painted because the subject matter was not important. I wanted to learn the craft. I wanted to understand how to paint. Because once you understand how to paint, you can do anything you want. You can paint anything you want. You can deconstruct that backwards very easily. You can stop halfway through a painting and have a mildly expressionist paint. You can move into it. You can go much tighter if you want to. But to me, the craft was so important. Okay, it was super important. Once the craft was done, deciding what to paint is easy for me. So once I was able to learn it, I really took to it. And so one of the reasons why I paint in a realistic fashion is because I enjoy the craft of painting. I enjoy it. I enjoy the line quality. I enjoy the paint. I enjoy the color. I enjoy the value. I enjoy it. And so, as I get older, my eyesight starts to go. Maybe I'll become a little bit more expressionist. But right now, I really enjoy what I'm doing. And if you really enjoy what you're doing, I think you're winning the game. When you're here in the South and when you see these gigantic cumulus nimbus clouds that are just building up and they're fantastically large, you get this amazing sense of awe, and you're able to look up and you see it's encompassing the entire sky, and then it's dark and it's coming towards you, and the sound, the thunder comes, and they're so awe-inspiring. Now, how do you put that onto a 36 by 36 canvas? Well, one of the things you can do is that by adding the large cloud and then having very, very small objects at the bottom, which are actually gigantic. For instance, the river, we all also know that we see these fantastically large ships coming here in New Orleans. We see them coming down the river, they're above you, okay? And their sense of scale is, they're extremely large. Now, when you put that thing and you make it 3 inches and you put the cloud over it, now you're getting a sense of, okay, here is this enormous man-made object, which is awe-inspiring. And it looks like a toy compared to what God just did right back behind you, this gigantic thing. So that sense of scale is so important in understanding and when I'm trying to convey the size of these large, these really large clouds. In the still lives, I'm doing, I'm not sure if I'm doing the similar thing, but by taking what is normally a small oyster and turning it into a 3-foot oyster, there's a surreal quality. Obviously, you're able to look much closer. You're able to look in much more intricate detail what's going on in these little small things. But you're also bringing it in scale by making it larger, making it seem so much more important. It dominates the wall. It can almost fill your whole point of view. So scale in the landscapes is obviously important to show the drama, and scale in the still lifes is important to kind of show the surreal quality of the objects I'm painting. Painting and drawing from the human figure is the most challenging thing that there is. And it's, everything, it needs to be done correctly, it needs to be done beautifully, it needs to be done quickly, all right? So that's practice. That, doing that once a week allows me to then go out, trying to jot down the shape of a cloud in 20 seconds or 20 minutes, is nothing compared to, to understanding the human form. Once you've understood that, and I'm never going to understand it perfectly, but using that as a practice for painting oysters and crabs and clouds, makes this much more enjoyable, much more fun.
We're back, and we're joined now by Billy Solitario. Billy, thanks for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
Listen, the first time I ever saw your work, I was down in Seaside, Florida, and it was right off the little square. There was a gallery there. And actually, Judith, that used to be here in the French Quarter that worked for George Rodriguez' studio, opened that gallery.
Oh, really?
And but I was really impressed because your landscapes were just gorgeous.
Thank you.
The way you styled the painting, you had so much sky in it, and just simplicity of the dunes and the trees. What started you out in that type of work? Was it the geographical location?
It was. I grew up in Mississippi Gulf Coast, right in Gaucher, which is directly north of Horn Island.
Right.
And we all know about Horn Island, well, at least I did from Walter Anderson spending all the time out there.
Yeah.
And it's an island about 7 miles off the coast.
Was he a hero of yours?
He wasn't a hero. I didn't know him, obviously. He died before I was born, but his work gained, I love the work, and I love the idea that he was from Ocean Springs. Bringing, when I saw the cover of Smithsonian, it had a whole story about him, the Smithsonian, and I was like, well, this is a hometown guy that's kind of become a rather famous artist.
It kind of put you in the mindset that you could get.
No, but it made me realize that there are famous artists that are around the corner sometimes.
Right.
But I grew up going out to Horn Island.
Okay.
We had a little sailboat, and I would sail to Horn Island. And as a kid, I mean, it's just like every kid's kind of fantasy is to be out on an island, a desert island by yourself, and running around exploring. And my childhood was a lot about spending a lot of time out in nature, and a lot of time on Horn Island, a lot of time in the woods, building forts. I mean, just the whole.
Yeah.
And
I grew up in the country, so I understand.
Yeah.
It's an idyllic childhood.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Right.
And when I began painting, the first thing I wanted to start painting was Horn Island.
Right.
Not in the style that Walter Anderson did. I wanted to be an oil painter. I liked the permanence of oil painting more than watercolor. And so the first things I started painting were Horn Island scenes. And Horn Island is just like Santa Rosa in that area. It's very white sand, rosemary bushes, pine and scrub oaks, and all that type of geography. It's the same stuff that's over there in Florida.
Right.
So as I became as I started selling paintings more, one of the first places I started bringing them was over to Florida.
Right.
And a lot of times I bring paintings of Horn Island over to Florida, and just just keep the title small enough so that because it all looks the same.
It looks the same.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that was some of the first stuff that I started painting.
Well, one of the things that's really interesting about the way you paint is that as a plein air painter, which it means painting out in the nature itself and painting what you see. To capture the grand scale that nature really is on a small canvas is really difficult sometimes. But again, back to the way that you style these paintings, you do capture the magnificence of what you can see.
I try to.
Yeah, well, you do. You really do.
When you look at my paintings, you also notice, obviously, that there's a lot of quick movement in brushstrokes.
Right.
And that's based simply on the fact that I'm working very, very quickly sometimes out there. So learning to paint and learning to have the command of the medium was real important. That's why I went to the New Orleans Academy of Fine Arts and really studied hard there under Oscar Zozals.
Right.
Because to paint, in plein air, if you're fumbling around, it's already over.
Right.
So you have to be able to really knock things out very quickly. So that became an important aspect of my training, was to learn how to paint very, very quickly, so that I could do some of the stuff I wanted to.
And still maintain that detail that you maintain.
Yeah, well, I mean, I get 90% of of the information is the big broad strokes, and then the details are just, you can do those back at home almost.
Studio work.
Yeah, you can almost just kind of finish it
Well,
out.
I noticed that in some of your new paintings you have ships involved, so obviously you can't, no,
those are
paint
all different photography. Yeah.
Okay, so you take a picture.
I'm very, I'm very practical in my sense of painting. There's some artists who are very dogmatic in their ideas, and they become very, very talented at what they do.
Right.
I am very practical in my ideas, and if I want to paint ships, I'm not going to study and draw them for months. Just to, I'm going to go out and use a photography. I mean, I do use a lot of photography in my work, and as I get older, I use a little more because I have a son now. I'm not spending as much time camping on Horn Island as I used to. I still go out there frequently, but I've started using pictures a lot more as well.
Well, again, back to scale of your paintings, your new work, a lot of your new work is close-ups of crabs and lemons and oysters and different things that we're all here very used to in New Orleans because of the food or the nature aspect of it all. It's familiar objects, but you've taken it and brought it into that canvas again in a grand scale so that it's not what you would expect, and they come off again really clever and interesting.
Well, thanks. Thank you. What I'm doing is just like in nature, I'm looking very, very closely at things, and I'm really trying to, getting the gesture of the cloud is nice, but then when you start to look even more closely, it starts to become more difficult. From figure drawing that when you can gesture it and be happy with it, but as soon as you start to figure out some permanent ideas, things can sometimes start to break apart. And as I'm looking at crabs, it was mostly crabs, the blue crab. I'm looking at it, and the closer I look, the more interesting it got, the closer I got to it. So of course, instantly, I wanted to make them larger, and also adjust, skewing the scale of having a crab the size of,
4 feet long,
4 feet wide crab. It really forces you to see it in a different manner, as opposed to, first of all, it's very intimidating. It's coming at you. It also makes it's a little bit surreal because it's larger. And then the cloud pieces, I'm also enjoying the control of scale by having these enormous ships on the painting are only about this big. And the cloud is then really grandiose over that. I'm trying to draw out the idea of man's smallness, and being living in New Orleans during Katrina and during all the other hurricanes, you start to realize that as big as things appear, that nature always tends to be much,
a lot bigger,
much larger. Exactly.
Well, tell us a little bit about the journey of Billy Solitario through, you're being discovered as an artist, maybe your first gallery that you showed at, where you traveled around the country, how all that evolved and laid out for you.
Well, I guess as an artist, I was studying at the New Orleans Academy of Fine Arts, and a gallery that's no longer in existence named, I can't remember the name of it, but they were on Julia Street. They had a cancellation, and they called the Academy and they said, can you maybe throw together 3 of your young talented kids? And it was myself, Kate Samworth, and Michelle Condos. And so we were all students there, and hadn't really moved out of the school yet, but we were all, kind of getting to that edge. And had a show down there, and it was very successful. We were all extremely underpriced, and sold. I think most of us sold out the show basically. Kate now shows at Lemieux, where I do. And Michelle, I know she's doing portraits. Anyways, so that was our first show, and the gallery asked me to stay around and continue working and doing shows there.
How about around the country?
Around the country, I show at a few other places. I showed at a place in Chicago, but I'm very nervous about having to ship out large amounts of paintings to places I don't know that well. So basically, my little kingdom, just like here in New Orleans, I got my life basically into like a 8-block area uptown. I have Florida, some places in Mississippi, Jackson, and here in New Orleans.
Well, the subject matter translates well in those areas as well.
It does.
Yeah. Where it might be a little bit of a stretch for somebody in Chicago to buy a big crab, because they don't see the blue crabs every day.
They don't see as many. I did sell actually 3 or 4 big giant crabs up there to maybe some transplants.
Yeah, that could be a big pop painting in the lobby of a big hotel, a gigantic crab. How do you see the art world today in comparison to maybe your art heroes? Well,
when I was growing up, it was really difficult to find people who really understood the craft painting as a craft. You know, as And so I went to college and studied a little bit in college and did that, and then found the New Orleans Academy of Fine Arts, where I was able to learn the craft, and that was important to me. Today, there has been a little bit of a renaissance of studying the craft of painting, with a lot of smaller schools kind of showing up. So it is nice to see that the craft of painting is becoming more recognized again now.
Right. How about the art scene in New Orleans? It's like really kind of breaking out of the box, and things are happening here.
It is.
Happening
It's real
10 years ago.
exciting. And well, there's more people coming into the city.
Yeah.
You know, there's more young people coming into the city, and they're talented, and it's going to be fantastic. You know.
We talk a lot amongst the artists that I know and hang out with about how different areas of the city used to just be for art and then nothing else, and now how the footprint of the arts are spreading across the city. You've got things happening in Midtown, you've got things down in the Bywater, Julia Street, of course, Magazine Street. You know, what do you think about those different areas and what they offer the city?
It's exciting. You know, it's real exciting that there's so many people coming into the Bywater. I'm not as familiar. Because as I
you stay in your spot.
as I'm getting older, and you know, and I'm living, and I never wanted to live in an urban setting when I was a kid. So now that I'm here, though, if I'm going to live in an urban setting, I want to live in an urban setting. I don't want to have to drive very much. I want to walk to lots of places.
Right.
So I'm not getting out as much as I used to. I mean, you know, Julia Street and then the Bywater every now and then, just to see what's going on.
Well, tell us. Are you showing at other galleries, or you just have your studio on Magazine Street now? Tell us how people can see you, how they can get in touch.
They can go to Lemieux Gallery, which is on Julia Street, Denise down there in Christie. And I have my own gallery on Magazine Street.
Right.
And
what's the address there?
The address there is 4531 Magazine Street.
And that's just north of Napoleon, right?
Just north of Napoleon.
Okay.
And I'm open by appointment, so my phone number's on the sign out front, so you can give me a call. I'm there most days, but you know, in the wintertime. In the summertime, I'm not there very often. When the weather gets nicer, I'm outside.
How about your website? Can people go there and look at things?
It's www.billysolitario.com.
Okay.
And if you have, it's spelling Solitario is not that hard. It's if you can also Google, it'll take you to all the places. There's only one Solitario, really.
And you're probably well represented on the websites. I mean, on the internet.
The first three or four places are going to be the galleries. Yeah.
Gotcha. Billy, thank you so much for being with us today and telling us all about your work.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. We'll be right back with more Made in New Orleans.
Weeknights at midnight on LAE.
Welcome back. We're now joined by Gogo Borgerding, a jeweler on Magazine Street. Gogo, thanks for being here. I'm excited.
Thanks for having me.
Listen, first of all, you got to tell me the story behind your name.
Back in the year 2005, I had just gotten into Jazz Fest and wanted to change my name into something that was a little bit more eye-catching and fun.
Like Madonna.
Yeah, like Madonna. And so I was at a bar with a bunch of friends, and 3 of them had changed their name in college. I was like, well, if you can do that, then I can do that too. And so we started throwing out names, and Gogo popped up, and I was like, oh, that sounds great. You know, I think it'd be catchy with the jewelry, Gogo jewelry. And then when I got married, I decided to take my husband's last name, Gogo Borgerding, and change the whole thing. And it's just kind of stuck, and it
So it's
works.
a bar story that worked out.
Yes,
Good,
exactly.
good.
Yes.
Listen, I know you went to SCAD, Savannah College for Arts. Tell me about how that influenced you and how you got started in the jewelry business.
Well, I first got started in the early 90s. I worked at a jewelry store in the Quarter called Rumors.
Okay.
And I used to sell about 1,000 different bracelets in the store, and earrings and necklaces, things like that. And I used to sell shrink-eating jewelry to get started, and it sold really, really well. And I decided I wanted to take my career a little bit further. I wanted to learn metalsmithing, and so I started looking into colleges that were in the South, and came upon the Savannah College of Art and Design, and realized I could get my undergrad degree in metals and jewelry design. And so went back to school in 1997 and graduated in 2000 in metalsmithing. I got my degree in metals and jewelry design, and I made my first bracelet when I was at the school. I was taking a class called Color on Metal, and I always wanted a cuff bracelet, and we were learning the process of anodizing aluminum, which is the color that you see behind me. These are the bracelets that I make, and the color behind it is anodized aluminum, and it's just like the tumblers from the 50s that were brightly colored. That's
and
the
they
same
keep
process.
your tea colder than anything else that you could possibly
Exactly,
put it in, right?
Yes. And so always wanted a bracelet, made one, and it just took off. I couldn't go 5 feet without somebody asking me, where did you get that bracelet? And so when I moved back to New Orleans in 2000, I worked 2 and 3 different jobs and at night working on my jewelry to get my jewelry business started, and it just kind of evolved from there.
Well, when did you open your shop?
I opened up my shop. Well, I got into Jazz Fest in 2005, and I opened up my shop with the money that I made from Jazz Fest. A friend of mine was moving to New York, and she had an open retail space on Magazine Street, and it had enough room for my studio and enough room for my retail space, and moved right in. And I moved to another location after that was a little bit bigger, but then that became overwhelming, and so I decided to look into places that were down further on Magazine Street where it splits.
Right.
And
well, that's an interesting block there anyway.
Yes, you feel like you're in the French Quarter.
Yeah, it's always been a little bit more eclectic and a little bit more lively for some reason.
Yeah, so I propositioned the owner of the building that I'm in right now to split it into 2 spaces and to have 2 retail stores, and they were all for it. They're both artists themselves, and I've been there now almost 3 years and just love it. I have a gallery in the front where I showcase about 13 different young up-and-coming artists from across the country, and some local, and then I showcase my work as well, and then I have my studio in the back so people can see me while I'm working. Yeah, and a lot of people like to come and visit and see how it's made.
You know, I found that too. I've changed my gallery over to a studio, and people love to come in and see what you're doing while you're doing it. It just gets them to be part of the process in a way.
Experience it, yes, exactly.
Well, speaking of the process, you were mentioning that it's anodized aluminum, and why don't you tell me a little bit about how you make it, what goes into making a cuff?
Sure. For about 10 years, I used to hand cut the jewelry, the bracelets, by hand with a jeweler saw. And what I would do is put the pattern down on the silver, drill holes into each little area, and hand cut with a jeweler saw the pattern, and then sand it down. And then you can't solder to aluminum, so I came up with the idea of making rivets to attach the metals together. And it's 3 pieces of metal. It's sterling silver on top, and then it's 2 layers of anodized aluminum underneath it. And after I'm done cleaning the piece, I then forge it on a bracelet mandrel to get the shape of your wrist, and then rivet the metals together. And now
it's really effective design. It really is cool.
Well, now I have a company who acid etches the process of cutting out the metal for me. Changed my life. It was sort of bittersweet because I had been cutting them out for so long. I definitely know the process of using a saw, but when I got my first sheet in the mail that was cut out, I cried because it's now letting me do more things, come up with more earrings and necklaces and broaden my
technology
collection.
Always does broaden things, because I was doing, using a plasma cutter to cut out some of my first stuff, and then it went to the CNC machines, and now we're doing water jet for the large scale public stuff. So, and they do water jet cuttings for what you're doing too. So technology is a blessing to us all.
I'm embracing it, and I think it's the wave of the future. People come in and they know about the process of cutting out the bracelets. I'm using acid etching or laser jetting, cutting the bracelets. So, but when you tell them that you hand cut it, there's something that's special about that too.
I guess you could do a limited series where you
I still do cut things by hand. If somebody special orders a piece, or for my gentlemen, I cut them out. I'll cut them out by hand because they're longer
Right.
in length.
Well, you do make belt buckles as well, because I saw one of our guests, Arlen, had.
Yes.
He had a,
Oh, he's a great model of my jewelry.
Yeah.
He's got several bracelets and a belt buckle. I do belt buckles, cufflinks, not just for women. My jewelry is very unisex. Make it for men and women. Earrings, necklaces.
Now,
Yeah.
Speaking of Arlen, we had another guest on previously. It was your husband, David.
Yes.
And with his beautiful sculptures.
Yeah.
Do y'all do any collaborative work?
We have. This past year, the Arts Council commissioned me to do a community arts award for 8 individuals in the city. So we took my patterns and the color and then took his idea of making it more three-dimensional.
Right.
And we made this beautiful award for
Cool.
the recipients, and that was very honored to have gotten that commission from the Arts Council.
Well, it's kind of cool to be in a creative family, but you have your studio and he has his, so you're not stepping on each other's toes.
Yeah.
And
The one thing that brings us together, we both love metal and fire. Those are the two things that definitely brought us together.
How can you not, right?
I know.
Well, you'd mentioned when we first started talking about Jazz Fest, kind of getting you started in the jewelry business. Tell me about how important that is to what you do, your business model and your output.
The New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival is the most amazing festival out there. They'll be celebrating my 9th year out at Jazz Fest, and this year I'll be the second weekend, so you get 4 days, which is great. It's my big money maker of the year.
Now, are you in a tent or in a booth?
And I'm in the contemporary craft area where you build your own booth. So when you walk in, my booth feels like a little gallery in its own little setting. I have wallpaper on the walls by Amanda Talley, who's another local artist who you've had on the show. And it's incredible, the people that come in, and they know that the crafts are going to be exceptional out of Jazz Fest, and so they save their money throughout the year to buy buy things out there. They buy jewelry, paintings, photography, sculpture. It's just an incredible festival, and I'm so fortunate to be a part of it.
Well, it's a boon to the local creative community for sure.
Yes, they embrace the local artist for sure.
Well, tell us, about the shopping experience on Magazine Street, because we've talked in previous shows with other artists about how the creative footprint is spreading around New Orleans, and French Quarter's always been known for the galleries and the art that's there. Julia Street, St. Claude is coming online. Magazine has always had a scattering of different types of businesses, shops, galleries, and so forth. So give me your experiences on Magazine, the type of people that come, and I know a lot of celebrities shop there.
Yeah, I haven't had too many celebrity sightings, I wish.
Yeah, well, now you have celebrities that wear some of
But
your...
I do have a few celebrities that have worn my bracelets, which is exciting. I just love, I know especially in my block, it's just a hodgepodge of antique stores to restaurants to cafes to we just got our first national chain Free People in our block, which some people are kind of against. They want to keep it all local, but it's definitely brought more people to Magazine Street. I see. I'm encouraging of it. I know that there's also another store that's national that's going to be coming up on Magazine Street, and I'm all for it.
Well, you've got a new restaurant coming in right down the street, Square Root.
Yes, and I hope that brings some revitalization to that block, because it's right before Magazine Street where it splits, and it's kind of an awkward block, but to bring a nice, restaurant in that space would be wonderful, and I think it will just add to that block.
Well, tell people how they can find you. What's the address of the gallery, your website, and so forth? The
address is 2036 Magazine Street. I'm between Jackson and where Magazine splits. I have a website, www.ilovegogojewelry.com, but the best place to find me is on Facebook. And it's I Love Go-Go Jewelry on Facebook. And I've got about 2,000 followers on Facebook, and it's just changed my business. It's incredible.
Cool. Well, Gogo, thank you so much for coming in and sharing with us all that you did today. It's been exciting. Your shop is gorgeous. I would tell everybody to come down and see you because it's really cool stuff.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're
This is
welcome.
fun.
You're welcome. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with more Made New Orleans.
You're watching WLAE, New Orleans Public Television. Find us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
That's all the time we have tonight. Please remember to support the arts in our city. For Made in New Orleans, I'm Steve Martin.
Made in New Orleans is underwritten by Art Plus Design Magazine, New Orleans Auction Galleries, and New Orleans Living Magazine.